Without further ado, I'd like to focus on today's event and give an introduction to our fine speaker and the host for today's activities. Born in Durango, Colorado, David Duncan spent his teenage summers working on a farm and cattle ranch. David always knew he wanted to work in the family business, and after graduating from the University of Notre Dame with an English degree in 1988, he began his career at Denver-based Duncan Oil, his family's oil and exploration business. Spent the next several years there, eventually going to night school to earn his MBA from the University of Denver in 1994. For his last 4 credit hours, David built a financial model for Silver Oak Cellars. The project was David's first work experience with the winery, and from that point forward, he was involved in the broader family business, including Silver Oak. In the 1990s, as he moved from exploration manager to president of Duncan Oil, David also consulted with his father on employee and strategic matters at Silver Oak. In addition to his duties at Silver Oak Cellars, David was instrumental in the development of the Duncan's family brand, Toomey Cellars. With his entrepreneurial spirit and focus on winemaking excellence established at Silver Oak, David oversaw the acquisition of the Calistoga winery that houses Toomey Cellars Merlot, as well as the winery in Healdsburg, where Toomey produces Pinot Noir and Sauvignon Blanc. Today, David worked closely with his father and his brother, Tim Duncan, adhering to the principle of continuous improvement and the high standards of quality. David remains in the oil business as CEO of Duncan Oil. He serves as an active board member of First Western Trust Bank. Based in Colorado, he is chapter chairman and member of the Northern California chapter of the Young Presidents Organization. He is also involved in the community, serving as chairman of the board at St. Helena Hospital Foundation and other organizations. David lives in St. Helena with his wife, Carrie, and their 3 children. Please welcome David Duncan.
Thanks, David. I can tell I need to update my bio. I'm not chairman of all those things now, but I have been chairman of all of them over the last few years. So welcome to Silver Oak. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for coming out on a Saturday to enjoy wine country. We have a beautiful, beautiful winter day, and although we are hoping to have the rains come back. So what we thought we'd do today is, rather than sort of take you through the timeline of Silver Oak, is I'm going to give you a little presentation that I put together about how we've applied the thinking of Jim Collins to the winery. And I'm a big Jim Collins fan. I had the opportunity when I was living in Denver to meet Jim. He lives in Boulder, Colorado, and get to know him a little bit. I had him come speak at an event, and it was right before Good to Great was published. And so that was a tremendous success. And then right before Great by Choice was published, I had him come to another event and got the opportunity to be a critical reader of Great by Choice. So my name is in that book, along with about 75 or 80 other people. But I'm proud of that anyway. And so, but I think that some of the thinking that Collins lays out, particularly in those 2 books, are really important. And it's kind of a way to weave our story into more of a business perspective around some of Jim Collins' thinking. So I also must mention that I did graduate from Pepperdine as well, because I have a certificate from a 3-day course that I took there a few years ago. So, and I don't know how I'm not sure how you all studied. I mean, it's beautiful there. Obviously, this is not Pepperdine University. This is actually one of our vineyard properties in Napa that we call our Soda Canyon Ranch. So I call this Applying Collins. And you know, in both of the books, he has a number of different, hopefully you've had the opportunity to read those, but there's a number of different concepts and ideas that he takes you through, and I'm going to just focus on a few of them. So we already have my introduction. One of the things I'm proud of is I'm actually the baby of the family. I have 3 older brothers. One of them works full-time here in the business. We're all involved in the family business. You know, the punchline of my project on Silver Oak in 1994 is that, for those of you who are old enough to remember, I did the first financial model in Lotus 1, 2, 3. And so it was quite a long time ago. In 2001, we ended up purchasing out, or excuse me, the Silver Oak was started by my dad, who's on the right, and Justin Meyer, who was his winemaking partner, on the left. And they started Silver Oak right here on this property. This was an old dairy farm that my dad purchased in 1972. And Justin had the winemaking idea, and Dad had the property. And so they shook hands and made a deal. And so for a long time, Justin was the big fish. And then in the late 90s, Justin started having some health issues and ultimately decided that he wanted to sell the winery. And so in 2001, we bought out the Meyer family. So sometimes people ask me, when did you buy Silver Oak? And I always say, we didn't buy it, we started it. But Justin was, more of the front guy. And then unfortunately, I lost my dad last fall. So it was that's why I said I need to update my bio, because he's still guiding us, but he's not talking anymore. So he was a great man, and we had a lot of fun, and just an honor to be in the family business. Collins went through the good to great process of studying a large universe of companies to look for particular traits, and ended up, studying very closely just 11 companies out of the 1,435 that he started with. And all of these companies exhibited one thing, which is that they worked for a while at a low level, and then they had some major change that affected the way that their future went. And his favorite one, and one of my favorite ones, is Southwest Airlines. I this year earned my preferred A list on Southwest Airlines, which sounds really great until you actually earn it. And you have to fly that much. It's not good. But I love Southwest Airlines. I think it's a wonderful product, and you know exactly what you're going to get. And then in Great by Choice, similar thing. He started with 20,000 companies and worked down to 7 companies that outperformed the industries that they were in, irregardless of headwinds, economy, difficulty, regulations, all of those different things. And so, I think that it's important to realize that as you think about these concepts, is that they really are universal. So I have a few takeaways that I like to focus on. From good to great, they're the seats on the bus, the idea of the hedgehog, that you do one thing and you do it very well, the flywheel, and brutal truths. Carol and I just had a meeting a few minutes ago. Carol Howard is our California sales manager, which is why you're all here, and is a Pepperdine grad. And so Carol and I had a meeting just a few minutes ago, and we were talking about brutal truths for a sales meeting we have coming up. And then in Great by Choice, what he calls the 20-mile march, bullets and cannonballs. I'm going to kind of skip over the smart and methodical one for time, and then this concept of return on luck. And so we'll just dive into it. So I think from a seats on the bus standpoint, it's having the right people, and having the right people in the right seats on the bus. And this is something that our management team, is really taken seriously. Whether you're in a superliner cruiser, or you got your old jalopy, or your broken on down bus that needs to be fixed up, or my favorite, the dope smoking surfer bus. Oh, sorry, you forgot you guys are from Malibu. So it actually might be a Malibu. So the microbus minivan. So this idea that you have the right people in the right seats, and if you don't, you must take action. I think that's my takeaway from that part. And I think it's very difficult to do sometimes, but I think the more we've done it, the more we find out that it's right. So for Silver Oak and for Toomey, we call our whole employee group the whole bunch. We're in the great business. And it really starts with our vineyard workers and the people who are in the field applying technology, and we can get into that in the Q&A, technology, our farming techniques, and our learning to everything that we do in order to affect wine quality. Then we have our production staff, the guys that work in here, make the wine. Our sales team, we got to get the product out, have people enjoy it, have people pay for it. Our experience here at the winery, that as you meet our crew and our staff, and you see the experience of the tasting room, and then at the bottom of the triangle, our management team, who are we're just there to empower all these other actions that happen. On the hedgehog concept, this is something that Jim talks about very passionately, and when you talk to him personally, I think this might be one of his favorite things. And that is that a business needs to be at the intersection of something that you're passionate about, and I think, as you'll see as we get into Q&A and stuff, I'm very, very, very passionate about Silver Oak and Toomey. I care a lot about what we're doing here, as well as our team. You got to have something that drives your economic engine. If we can't be in business unless we have the opportunity to go forward and make money, and that's ultimately a measure. And then something that you can be the best in the world at. And in the wine business, I don't like the word best, and I don't like wine scores. I don't like these kind of arbitrary things. I think that I like the word excellence, and to think in that term in the wine business, because I live here in Napa Valley. I'm friends with all these other vintners. There's many of my very best friends are brands that you've heard of, Spotswood or Rumbauer or Schaefer. Those are all people that I'm close friends with. So I'm not trying to be best or better than them. They all make excellent products too, but try and do something unique. Try and make our products stand out in their own way and be always at a level of excellence. So for us, that's that Silver Oak is aged in American oak barrels, and we are known as the American oak producer. We have actually an ownership and we have full ownership now in our own cooperage in Missouri, another one of the businesses we're in. I don't think about trying to get a 94-point wine or a 95-point wine. I think about the product that we make delivers a moment. And I have this wonderful opportunity to meet so many different people who enjoy Silver Oak and Toomey or our wines, and they don't tell me about whether it tastes like strawberry or cassis or some wine descriptor. They tell me about, I opened this bottle when my son graduated from college, or somebody turned 21, or somebody was married, or somebody died, or many, many touching stories. And I think as I've been at the winery full time, I think that's something really to think about. And then our slogan of life is a Cabernet, and even though we make other varietals now, that still really sticks with us. That as we focus on something and decide to do something, that it's something that we can live in the hedgehog concept. So this is another one. This is probably my favorite, and that is Jim's concept of the 20-mile march. So as I was putting this presentation together, I downloaded this picture off the internet, and it was all kind of grainy, and I was trying to find a high-res version, and I was like, I kind of like this picture being grainy and a little confusing, because you're on a journey and you don't know what the future is going to bring, and you don't know what it looks like, and it's not all clear, and the road's not always ahead, and you might have a big, huge obstacle in your way, like a big mountain, and yet you got to keep going. And so Jim's concept of the 20-mile march is expressed at Silver Oak well by this chart, which is, this is our case production from 1972 through 2014. And for 30 years, we grew very incrementally, slowly and steadily, up to kind of what we call a cruising altitude. And the constraining factor there is our use permit. And so both in Napa County and Sonoma County, there is a limit on the amount of wine that you're allowed to produce at a facility. And so that's kind of how we've hit that spot. But we've since then, what I don't show in here is prices. We've also raised prices, and so that's that's worked. But I think this really shows the wine business is very unusual, and especially our business, because it literally takes us 5 years to make our product. And we go through, we have not released our 2011 Napa Valley Cabernet yet. It's a week from today. As a matter of fact, we'll be unveiling that wine. But it helps us or prevents us, I should say, from being reactionary, from following fads, from following trends. We really have to think about, what the market's going to want and where we are in 5 years. And it's an unusual business model. Or business constraint, actually. So for us, these are the elements of the good march that Jim talks about. The performance markers, for us, that's the vintage. We have constraints, and the constraints for us are grape supply, Mother Nature in a big way, things that we can control, and kind of having an ideal time frame. He calls it the 20-mile march because he uses the analogy of walking across the country. And he says, if you leave from Los Angeles and you're going to walk to New York, what's the best way to do it? And if you go 100 miles and kill yourself one day and then sleep for 3 days, but then it snows, so you're better off to do something you can keep going and walking 20 miles. And he's a big athlete, so 20 miles for him is no problem. And then consistency. And that's the idea, is you just go and you stay steady. And I think that's really a key concept. And with some of the things that have been thrown at us, a couple of which I'll share with you today, it's really helped me as the leader of the company to say, okay, we just got to get up tomorrow and keep going. So the flywheel is an idea that once you're on the roller coaster, or once you're got the flywheel going, that you can continue to build on your momentum and build on your success. And flywheel is a big, heavy thing that once you get spinning, it's easier to keep it spinning than it is to get it started. And so that's why he uses that. So this is Jim's model from the book. I've modeled or modified this a little bit with some help. And the idea that we have a vision that you're going to do something. So, it might be, I'll make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, okay? That's my vision of that I'm going to do. I plan that. I get out a knife, the peanut butter, the jelly. I don't eat bread anymore, so the gluten-free bread. And then you execute. You make the sandwich. Then you eat it, and you evaluate how you did. And then the next time you do it, you might do it a different way. So whether we're making wine or doing performance reviews or looking at year-end results, that we talk about and think about this inside of the company. And then always surrounded by the idea that we're trying to do it at an excellent level, at an expectation of top notch. So this is another one that we use in the winery all the time. We're always saying, let's fire a bullet before we shoot a cannonball. So, in Jim's lexicon, bullets are low cost, low risk, and low distraction. And a cannonball is a cannonball. So I think we all understand what that is, taking a big chance. So we learned this lesson in a very visible way with Toomey, which is our brand that we started in 1999. Toomey is my grandmother's maiden name. It was my dad's middle name. It's my oldest son's middle name. It's a family name. It's Irish. And we started producing Merlot. So the first year we made about 700 cases. And this was, you'll note that I took over as GM in 2002. This was not my decision. This was my dad's decision. So in 1999, we made about 700 cases. In 2000, we made 9,000 cases. That's a big jump. And so that was a big cannonball. At our peak, we made almost 12,000 cases of wine. And then there was this little thing called sideways. Definitely something out of our control that we couldn't deal with. But it took the Merlot consumption in America from 14% to 2.5%. I mean, a really dramatic impact. People don't understand that. Now we're making an expensive high-end Merlot, but the idea, the word Merlot became a four-letter word, honestly. So we retooled and brought our levels down to 6,000 cases. So we talk about this a lot in our history as, we fired a big cannonball that frankly didn't work. Now, this is also Toomey. This is our production of Pinot Noir, where we made 4 vintages at a very low level and then started working our way up. You'll note that we started making wine in 2002, so I can make fun of my dad even if he's not here. But now we're up getting in, we're going to make about 10,000 cases this year. Our Pinot Noir is growing tremendously in popularity, and I think the quality of it's great, and I hope you have the opportunity to try it. We also make Sauvignon Blanc under our Toomey label, and kind of tried to apply the same lessons there. Actually, in this one, it's even more dramatic. We made the 03, 04, 05, and 06 without ever selling a bottle to the public. We weren't really satisfied with the quality of the wines, so we sold all that wine, it wasn't very much, to our employees for $5 a bottle. They loved it. And then in 07, we sort of hit on the style and what we were in this and where we were going to get fruit from, and felt comfortable then growing that, in more recent years. And so the 14 and 15 both were around 9,000 cases now of Sauvignon Blanc. What he calls the SMAC principle is this idea of being specific, methodical, and consistent. And this is our model of our word cloud of who we are, founded in our foundation around a family business. We're family owned, we always have been, we're very proud of that. Toomey is kind of the sleek and sexy new thing. Silver Oak is where life is a Cabernet, iconic. You see moments right up there at the top. This is something that again, I think encapsulates a lot of what we're about. So this is the brutal truth part. And I think that there's some things in here that are good practices, whether or not you're a business leader or a manager or even on a team, the idea to lead with questions and not try and tell people necessarily what to do. I spend a lot of time at our wineries talking about culture and very openly with every employee, making sure that they understand what our culture is and that they're encouraged to ask questions and give feedback and share ideas, and it's amazing what comes out of that. Engaging in dialogue, and if something does go wrong, you don't say, well, you're stupid, right? You say, what happened and how can we make it better next time? And then also, having in place in your structure things that will tell you that there's a red flag being thrown. So for us, we had a couple things. We had a big flood and a fire here. Some of you might remember in 2006, there were floods over New Year's Eve. It was national news here in Napa. It was a disaster. Where we're standing right now, we had 38 inches of water in the tasting room. It was an absolute disaster. And a month later, we had a fire. So I'm going to get back to that. You deal with wine scores, and that's something that we've really become. We're not chasing the score, and so we've kind of become immune to it in a way. And it's actually really nice because a lot of my vintner friends, they're Parker this or Spectator that, and they care about that. Or during the recession, we had to make some decisions. It was very difficult. We're a high-end product, and people were pulling in their horns. A red flag mechanism is a full-time analyst who now helps our sales team. We look at cost structures, all those kind of things that we can make a difference on. So some of this also applies to our return on luck. So this is what I was just talking about. January 1st, 2006, this is the winery. The water had receded, but not the mud and the muck and the mess. So that's water bubbling out of the drain from groundwater in the old tasting room. February 2nd, a month later, the original dairy barn that is where we began, the dumpster actually caught on fire and then caught the building on fire. And I like to say I didn't know what burned to the ground meant. I actually took these pictures. So it's, it seems like a long time ago, and it also seems like yesterday. But you can see here the barrels. These are the air conditioning units that fell down out of the roof after the fire was done. So one of those actually caught on fire that night again, and we had to call the fire department back out. It was crazy. So I thought maybe on March 3rd we would have the locust come. So I didn't know. I'm serious. Like when it got to me, it was 1-1, 2-2. When it hit 3-3, I was like, something bad's going to happen. This is a picture of my dad and my brother and I standing in front of the winery during the fire. We had 50 firefighters here, and you might not be able to totally tell, but my dad and my brother have a very grim look on their face, and I'm smiling in the photograph. And I'm wearing shorts and tennis shoes because I was at the gym when I got the call. And but I think that in hindsight, I was just responding to having my picture taken. I wasn't really happy that the winery was burning down. But the picture kind of amuses me because I think that we ended up going down to my dad's house here on the property, and everybody was crying. We were really upset. And I think it was our CFO that said, she's like, what are we going to do now? And I, without missing a beat, I said, we're going to rebuild. We're going to rebuild the winery. We opened a bottle of wine. We all started, talking about what was going to happen next. And right at that moment. And so this is the old winery a year later. And Justin had passed away in 2002. And this was really his building, very much his building. And we had spent a year planning and getting ready to construct the building that you're in now. And in this corner of the photograph down there on the far right side, you can see an excavator. And this picture was taken literally the night before we began the demolition of the winery. And there was this double rainbow out in the vineyard. And so I was on property and I had a camera and I ran out and I took this picture of a rainbow above the old winery right before we tore it down. And this is a totally real picture. It is photoshopped. I always have this disclaimer when I show the photograph because I had to take 3 pictures to get the whole thing in. For you youngins, there were no iPhones in 2007, and so they were just coming out. Definitely no pano. So, so it's kind of a fun picture. So, And then this is the new winery. Usually we're not sitting here, where you are, but it ended up really being a very positive thing for us. It from a winemaking standpoint, from a brand standpoint, from a way to rethink our business. And as a matter of fact, because of that experience, we are now in the process of building a new winery up in the Alexander Valley. We bought a beautiful historic piece of property up there in 2012. We spent the last couple of years coming up with the ideas and permitting and doing all the things that we need to do, and that we're now under construction. And that winery will open in 2017. Just quickly, we went through the recession, and this is also part of kind of what you face. And so everybody experienced that. It was a pretty tough time, GDP dropping. This is one of the things that I think is the most important indicators in the wine business. This is the University of Michigan Index of Consumer Sentiment. And when we're down in the 60s, people don't buy wine. They think about, I got to save money, I got to be. So we went through this period in 8, 9, and 10 where consumer sentiment was very, very low. And then, in the last couple of years, it's been back up again, even though the market's been down a couple thousand points. So this is what I watch when everybody else is watching the stock market. So let's keep it happy, okay? So one of the things that we did during the recession is everybody in the wine business went to a discount model. They said, we got this many boxes that we need to sell, we got to get the wine out of there. And I think because of our long-term thinking and because of the way we've done business for so long, we had a different idea. And that is that we have a library of wine, and if you walk into our tasting room, you can see our library here. But we've always had a library. We've always kept past vintages to make available. And so one of the things that Jim talks about is making a disrupting plan. And so I think the idea that we came in on zooming in on what to do about this recession was rather than discount the wines and throw them to the wolves. And I think the price of Silver Oak would still be low today compared to where we are had we done that. We held back a significant number of cases and just artificially impacted demand on the wine. Put them in the library. What is library? I asked my kid this last night. We were talking about it, and who's 14, my daughter, and I said, what happens to wine when it gets older? And she goes, it becomes more valuable. I mean, everybody understands that concept. And fortunately, we had the financial wherewithal to withstand that. But that was our big idea, was don't push the wine into the market. And as it played out, that turned out to be a very good thing. So we were very fortunate in the way that we handled the recession. So our return on luck, there's chance events, Ray meeting Justin, having vineyard acquisitions, much of which the really good properties never come on the market. They don't get for sale signs. So you have to be lucky to run into the right person and hear about it. I put our customers in this category because it's so engaging and makes me so happy to meet people who've had an experience with our wine that has impacted their life. I mean, that's a really special thing. I also put the fire in the lucky category now, or the flood, or even the economy as we have to deal with it, because it helps us think better and helps us really pursue that idea of getting better and better. We always have to deal with the weather. That was the one thing. My dad was very entrepreneurial. He started a ski area in Colorado, got into the oil and gas business, and actually started Silver Oak before we got even successful in the oil and gas business. But he was always in weather-based businesses, so I always questioned him about that. But all those things make you better. So this kind of summarizes a few of the concepts that Jim has from his books. And then he has this idea of the hedgehog concept, that I mentioned was one of his favorites. So I came up with a parable to sort of summarize everything that we learned from here. So that is, a disciplined hedgehog faced the brutal truth that there were no seats on the bus. Therefore, he started a 20-mile march, armed with lots of bullets and a few cannonballs. He knew who he was, what he was good at, and saw luck in the good and in the bad. So here's our hedgehog. So I did actually download the full-res picture of this from the internet. So those are a few of the ideas I think that we pull together in some of the things that we do. And I always end this with Jim's most important command if you're a business leader, which is stop doing. You've got to be looking forward and not worrying about every single thing, which is easy for me because I am not a detail guy. So thank you very much, and hope you have some questions. Be happy to answer it. So I think David's going to come up.
I'm going to invite David to take a few questions from the audience. So if you have a question, Phil here has the microphone, and I encourage you to raise your hand and engage with them further.
Thank you. Great presentation. One quick question. The Silicon Valley Bank just came out with the annual report of the wine industry and talked about the decline in the consumption, especially for the boomer generation, which for us means that there should be an increase for the next generation after that. You talked about the rating systems, how that's not really relevant to a lot of people, including the new wine drinkers. What do you think are going to be some of the factors that will change consumption for the younger wine drinkers who are coming of age to purchase wines?
Great question, wonderful question. Rob McMillan lives here, and I know him well, and we actually bank with Silicon Valley Bank for Toomey. I think that there's a couple insights in that report. Was that on a broader scale, yes, consumption was down, but if you look at it a little more granularly, what was really down was the consumption of inexpensive wines below $5 or $9 a bottle. And so what it means is that people are, and we see this in many things, people are moving to drinking less but drinking better. Definitely the craft beer movement, the whiskey, tequila, whatever, the fine spirits and that kind of thing are impacting the wine business. But I see that as an opportunity for us because we are a little more of a high-end product and have the ability, hopefully, to appeal to the people who, if they're going to drink something they trust and something that they really enjoy.
Question? There you go.
I just had a quick question. Looking at the numbers you have, year-to-year sales increases, could you maybe touch on what happened in 2011 that caused your production to drop?
Yeah, great question. So those were production numbers, not sales numbers. But the 2011, we had 5 inches of rain in June. And I actually wrote a song about it called Ill-Timed Rain. That's not a good time for rain if you're trying to grow grapes. And so as an industry, the industry was down about 30%. And it's a good example of our commitment to excellence of Silver Oak because we had the same experience, and we have a target of the number of cases that we're trying to make. Our winemaker kept saying, we're not going to make it. And I was like, we have to make Silver Oak. We have to make a great wine that year. So we actually made 30% less wine in 2011 than we normally do. And I'm very proud of the wine that we made. And so in 2012, we'll be back up to our normal production levels. But 2015 was also a short vintage. So unfortunately, we're facing that again. And I'm taking drastic action against having that happen for a third time by trying to secure more grape supply than we need. Because we have to, in any given year, Mother Nature always messes with you somehow. Whether you have a frost or you have rain or you have, heat or whatever it is, drought, flooding. And so the way to protect against that is to have an abundant amount of wine because you have to make selections. If we have a weather event, it doesn't impact everything all over Napa and Sonoma the same way generally. So, and different vineyards are at different stages. So by producing a blend, we're able to do that. But like in 2011, we just didn't have enough supply to make a wine that we could call Silver Oak, and so we made less wine. So that is the answer for 2011. So.
You actually answered. My question is about global warming. Are you taking any measures? Does it have an impact on your production currently? Do you see it having an impact in the future? And that's the question.
Yeah, so question about climate change. I mean, we are outside worrying about the weather every single day. And one of the things that we have applied in the really since 2009 is when it began in earnest, is the application of technology to our grape growing. And so from a water use standpoint, from understanding the evaporative index, really dialing down our canopy management, trying to direct the vine to put its energies into more flavors at lower sugars. And so that is something that is affected definitely by climate change. I think there's a big run to Oregon right now for a lot of California wineries, and I think some of them aren't planning on growing Pinot Noir up there. I think they're planning on growing Cabernet eventually. It's a difficult question because it is something that we think about. I think generally the way that I think about that, if I'm on a one-on-one conversation, so I'll say my pithy answer to everybody, is that if we can't grow grapes in Napa Valley because of climate change, the problems we're going to have are going to be way bigger than not being able to grow grapes here. So that's my pithy answer. So.
Got a question about the business model. About your business model? Well, there it is.
There you're on.
I've been buying wine for a long time. Last few years, I've seen the higher end, small kind of vineyards come up, and it seems that they're going more e-commerce with, they belong to a club and the wine is delivered. Where do you see that, and how's that going to affect distributors and the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, in the last 10 years, the direct-to-consumer has shifted from our legal ability to be able to ship wine to consumers in 13 states to now 44 states. So the landscape has changed dramatically. Some of them have very complicated rules, and much of it's felony offense, and if somebody goes to jail, that's me, so we make sure we play by the rules all the time. But our experience in the tasting room, and those online sales in California, we can ship to you. So direct sales make up about 25% of our business. Our business model is to continue to sell in restaurants and to a limited extent to fine wine shops. That hasn't always been the case, and that's actually what Carol and I were meeting about today. So we're shifting that and continuing to evolve that. I think for a smaller winery, it's the only way to sell wine anymore. If you make less than 5,000 cases or maybe even 10,000 cases, no distributor these days will talk to you. They've gotten so large, and it's kind of like do you remember when Walmart started? They said no hardware store would survive. Well, now there's great mom and pop hardware stores. Or Starbucks is probably a better example, that Starbucks came along, and now there's a coffee shop on every corner. There's a Starbucks on one corner, and there's some other coffee shop on another corner. And so I think that the distributorship is now spawning smaller distributors who just focus on fine wine and often craft spirits that want those small producers. So the landscape continues to evolve and change. But if you live in California, I'd be happy to ship you wine.
You mentioned technology in your answer about the climate change. Is there any other areas of your business where technology is making a great impact?
Yeah, wonderful question. You can see the winery behind you here, and if you're interested, I'll take you and show you. But 2 years ago, we experimented with the idea of automatic pump over devices. So a pump over is where you take the wine and you basically, it's like a coffee. If you think about it like drip coffee, you pump the free juice over the skins in order to extract the flavor and colors. Well, we've always done that with a guy, and you have to set up a couple hoses. It takes 2 guys. You kind of hose it down. It takes 15, 20 minutes. Well, now we're doing it with computers, and we can do like a 2-minute pump over or a 4-minute pump over. We could do it 8 times a day. So that's an application of technology in production. Clearly, technology in our marketing is become really important. 2 weeks ago, we crossed 50,000 Facebook fans, which is an extraordinary number for the wine business. I don't know where we are in our rankings, but it's not bad, and especially for a winery our size. And so, I think that the way to communicate with the consumer, the way that mobile is a huge thing now. That a year ago, if you looked at our website on mobile, you weren't able to buy wine through mobile. Well, now mobile's making up like 12% of our sales of our direct-to-consumer. So that's going to change and change and change. So there's we could talk about it all afternoon. There's a lot of things that technology impacts.
Corporate consolidation in the fine wine business has been pretty pervasive, especially the last year and a half. Being a family-run winery, what do you see as a projection for other family-run wineries versus big corporations in the future?
Yeah, I think I walk around with a baseball bat to keep people away. So it's been dramatic. I mean, BR Cone, Jay, you can just run down the list of some of these family businesses that are trading hands. I think that often they're trying to keep the spirit of that, but it is a big change, and I just think it's something you're going to continue to see. I think fine wine is particularly in Napa and Sonoma it's a great business opportunity if you can do it right. And I think that people get to a point where they don't see the value in continuing the business, and they see the value of the dollars and not doing anything. Fortunately for me and for my brothers, as I mentioned, we just lost my dad, so we've been through a big family discussion about what we're going to do, and this is what we do, and we're going to keep doing it. I had the opportunity to go to Bordeaux last year for the first time, and I met several families over there who had been in business for 200 or 300 years, and that's a really impressive and inspiring thing that they can continue. So I think that my dad's legacy was to start this business. I think my legacy is to figure out how to continue it and carry it on in the next generation.
All right, we'll take one more question.
So 2006 gave you a unique opportunity to retool the entire winery. Can you tell us how you were able to reshape your business process when you did that, considering that you are a family-run business and your dad was very entrenched in this is how I've always done it?
It's a great question, and that's one of my least favorite phrases is, somebody says, well, why do we do it that way? Well, that's the way we've always done it. I go, why? And so, I think that it really, it's something that now I bring up with our team often is like, let's have a fire about this. I use it, and let's burn down all of our thinking, because what happened to us was, after the flood and the fire, we had no choice but to rebuild the winery. So that sets you into going through everything we do, from our hospitality experience to our office experience to obviously to winemaking first and foremost. And the winery that you see here, we built with a plan of what I called the 50-year plan. And that was that I wanted this building to stay flexible. One of the things that I had learned, or that I thought I knew when I came out here, was that winemaking is a recipe that couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, our consistency is due to doing things differently every vintage. It sounds like like they're saying the wrong thing, and so, and I can tell you honestly, there's not a lot about this place that I would change. I think we had a really cathartic and fortunate experience to think about it. I mentioned we're building another winery in the Alexander Valley, and we bought the property in 2012. It's taken us to now to design it. So we've spent like 2 years thinking about how we make wine, what the process is, and the difference between where we're currently producing wine up in the Alexander Valley and this new winery is going to be night and day. It's absolutely dramatic, and I'm so excited about it because I'm very proud of the wines we've made for many years at our current facility. It's going to make a difference in our business. We're also, nobody asked about sustainability. We're also building the new winery at a level of sustainability that I think will be unprecedented in the world. And trying to get LEED Platinum certification, Building by Living Building Challenge criteria. And one of the things that I set for the team was that we can't do that at any cost. Because if we do it at any cost, we don't prove anything. So we have to do it at maybe a reasonable, it is more expensive, so we have to do it at a reasonable incremental expense. But that over the lifetime of the building absolutely makes sense. So, solar panels, mostly around energy and water in the new winery. We will use about 20% of the water that we would in a conventional winery in the new facility because of the way we're going to plumb the winery and our water processing facility. So to give you an idea of the dramatic difference that we're going to make in that single resource. So hope that answered your question. Yeah.
I'll take the privilege of asking the last question. As
Okay.
a follow-up to your presentation, you said, one of the Collins principles of getting the right people on the bus, and you share very clearly your company culture with new employees. And you make that a regular part of the conversation around here. Can you share a little bit more about what it's like to work for Silver Oaks or Toomey in terms of the company culture?
Yeah, I think culture is something that I'm very passionate about, and I think that so often people are afraid to talk about it and to define it and to make it happen, and I think that's something that frankly, I think when you come out and you're the kid and you're going to run dad's business, you better come with a whole dose of humble pie. And so, I think the idea that I kind of don't know what I'm doing is helps me foster that. So we've done lots of retreats. We spend a lot of time. We spend money on consultants and talking about who we want to be. When we have a new person come and join the bunch, we inoculate them in the culture. We've had people that, we kind of have a 90-day period. We've had people that on the 89th day, it's pretty clear they're not going to make the culture. They don't get on the bus. And so sometimes it takes longer to figure that out. But I think that that's something that, my dad had a wonderful way of saying, you got to get it. Like, if you don't get it, you're not going to stick around. And so, that's something that, again, I think the main thing is to be proactive and to think about it. I just finished reading Ed Catmull's book about Pixar, Creativity, Inc., and he talks about this extensively and very long-windedly, even more long-winded than me. And but it's a wonderful, wonderful book. And they decided who they wanted to be and put those personalities together. And so I think that that's something that often in businesses we're kind of afraid to, and especially when you get the corporate culture of it's not my job, it's not my fault, it's not this, it's not that. I hope that everybody on our bus owns what they do and owns what we are. And I think largely that is true every day. So,
David, I want to thank you for the last hour. It's been a very enlightening use of our time, very informative. And can you join me in giving a hand to David Duncan?
Thank you. Thank you.